Now we should be good for YouTube. All right, let's try that again. All right, round two. I believe we're live now and ready to go.
Perfecto.
So, Pete, we wanted to jump on here and discuss what has been going on. What's new?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we owe folks a belated Independence Day, now 2 weeks late. But, I mean, took a little bit of time away. And this summer's project is a little case called Gator's Gun, going to a little court called the U.S. Supreme Court. It's pretty phenomenal that, I want to talk about, before we really get into the meat of it, the fact that we got through the state Supreme Court, the trial court, all of that in, a year and a half, give or take, with a decision, with an appeal seeking certiorari or review by the U.S. Supreme Court, all within 2 years. I know for everyone who's paying attention, it feels like forever, right? I mean, 2 years, oh my goodness. Some people, 2 years, who knows, had a kid or moved or whatever the case was. But I want to kind of put a note on it. When you look at a lot of these, in particular the gun cases, you're talking, some of these are 3, 5, 7 years in the making.
We got Duncan v. Bonta, California. That's how old?
Like 2019, I think. So
I thought it was older than that.
It may have been 17. So I mean, it's somewhere in the 6 to 8 year range. You had what was the initiative that came out of here with the 18 to 21 year old? It was like 1659, 52 or something, whatever it was. I think that one took like 4 to 5 years. So I mean,
is that dead as of now, or is that still working through its courts? Do we know where that's at?
I haven't seen anything on it, so I assume it's dead.
It's just sitting there. We're dead.
Yeah, I think it's gone. I think there was a final decision out of it a while back. So, I mean, I guess the point that I wanted to raise on that is, here we are, and it's felt like forever since, this bill was passed, Senate Bill 5078 in 2023. And for some people, it's like long history, and it is what it is. But, 2 years to get to the U.S. Supreme Court is quick. We'll have this brief filed, in the first week of August. So it's pretty, both a daunting task and an exciting task at the same time. So yeah, I mean, that's really what's been eating my July and most of my June, as well as a couple of our other attorneys. We want to put as much attention and elbow grease into this as possible. We're fortunate that the NRA has seen the value. They've given us another emergency funding for $25,000 to make sure that we've got the ability to pay staff and put the $7,000 to $10,000 in just printing costs on the first brief. That's not all briefs. We'll have a reply brief that we're going to have to fund as well. And then, God willing, we get cert granted. Now we're going to have the real rush to probably, my guess would be like the summer term of 2026. I mean, if that's the case, we could have a decision, by the end of the next year, which again feels like a long time, but.
Right. Well, before we go into like the timeline of everything, just for anybody who hasn't been following along, in layman's terms, I'm the non-attorney here. In layman's terms, we're representing a firearms dealer or gun store out of Kelso, Washington, called Gator's Customs Guns. And there was a bill that was passed, as Pete said, in 2023 that made it illegal to sell, purchase,
Import,
import, distribute any magazine, any gun magazine that exceeded 10 rounds. Gator's Guns stands accused of continuing to sell those, and that's where we stepped in and represented them. They were sued by the state. We stepped in there and countersued, and those cases were joined. We won in the Superior Court in front of Judge Basher, and on grounds of constitutionality, both state and the United States Constitution. Went before the state Supreme Court, and they disagreed with Judge Basher, which opened the door for us to appeal to the Supreme Court of the United States, which is where we really thought things were going based on the politics and those that were sitting on the bench in the Supreme Court here in Washington, and the way that the Washington Attorney General handles these kinds of things. This was an eventuality that we foresaw. Of course, we always had hopes that somebody would make the right choice along the way. But this is where we're at. Now we're going to the Supreme Court because we're going to defend Gator's custom guns, which coincides with defending our Second Amendment rights.
Absolutely. Wrapped it up, and guess the podcast is over.
That was just the synopsis. That was just a synopsis of everything. There's so much more going on there, and that's why I just wanted to break it down into layman's terms for the average person listening in, so they understand how this benefits them.
Yeah, I mean, to that very pointed question, it benefits all of us. Anyone who's seeking to purchase or even purchase from out of state and bring into Washington a so-called large capacity magazine, anything more than 10 rounds. I mean, the notion of just go buy it in Oregon, just go buy it in Idaho, and you and I have talked about this on other podcasts. I mean, Oregon's pretty dead, given all of its legislation and its potential legislation and everything that's happening there. I mean, this law would prohibit someone from buying a magazine in Idaho and importing it. I mean, so there's that risk there. Now, do I think it's a probability that Washington State Patrol is going to stop someone and say, let me search your car for large capacity magazines? No. But it still prohibits people from doing so and doing so legally. And so that's why, for us, the case, aside from what we saw as injustice when former Attorney General, now Governor Ferguson, filed what's called a civil investigative demand against a small mom and pop shop, saying, hey, we're going to force you under penalty of perjury, which has criminal and civil penalties, to swear on how many of these you sold. They stood accused without any support, any trial, any sort of thing like that. And, fast forward 2 years, here we are working with them. Wally Wentz is one hell of a patriot. He and his family is the proprietor of Gators. This is one that he is willing to put his livelihood, even this late in his career, and any of his fortune on. And he stood with us. He stood tall, and he stood broad-shouldered, right? This is the type of client that you want, someone who cares about our country, someone who cares about our rights, someone who cares about being in the fight. They're not just in it because, oh crap, I need someone to protect me. Mm-hmm. And we've seen cases, whether it's gun cases or other issues, inside and outside of our organization, where folks are just not willing to take that chance. And once we met with Wally back in the day and had a plan forward, I mean, it's been the perfect marriage, I guess.
Yeah. So there's an aspect of this case that I don't think we've ever openly spoke about when it comes to Wally. When he was first stood accused of this, what was the potential if he just rolled over and said, "You got me, I'll do whatever you say. I just want to go my way and run my business." What was the worst that could have happened to him at that point?
I mean, the absolute worst case scenario, had he just capitulated at that point, depending on how many they claimed he sold, which I think at one point the allegation is up to 11,000 magazines. And there's I think a max of $7,500 per magazine. Mm-hmm. Now, getting a judge to assess that is a whole different story. But I mean, the absolute max, was that make it like either 7 million or 75 million? I don't have that math right off my head.
Well, let's say he capitulated and made a deal like some other gun stores have. What was the likelihood of it? What was probably the least that he would?
Well, I mean, we saw other gun stores to the tune of, I think, 2 million.
That was Federal Way, right?
Yeah,
but that was they kind of fought it, but
yeah. I mean, had he capitulated, maybe it'd be. I can't imagine the state was going to go away with. We've seen other gun stores, maybe not accused at such a level to the tune of, like, I'm going to say 20 or 50,000 on the low end. And again, that was like real quick, one and done. Like, yeah, we're going to abandon it. We have here's what we've done to show we've abandoned the practice. Those sorts of things. And none of those allegations obviously stood with Wally. The claim was that he just kept going and going and going.
Right.
At least so the state says. And, with that type of allegation, yeah, maybe could have got it in and out easier, if you want to call it that. But certainly, there's probably, I mean, I don't think the state on this one would have just settled it quickly. Possible, but I don't think probable.
So from the beginning, he had something to lose, but not nearly to the extent that possibly he's at now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously, there's the more risk, and the state's incurred fees. We pay their salaries,
right?
Incurred costs in litigating this case, as we have, and so. I mean, there's a lot at play here at this point. I mean, it's certainly escalated, I guess, is probably one way to put it. The risk has increased, just, time. And with Ferguson and Brown, I don't think it's going to be any different than Ferguson Inslee would have been.
Yeah.
Seemed like Inslee wasn't driving the boat. He was just, sitting there in the passenger seat looking happy and smiling.
Oh, well, that's a whole different conversation. We'll skip that for the day. But anyway, the point that I wanted to make sure was drawn and came across to those listening is that Wally had something to lose from the beginning. Chose to do what he did, whatever it was that he did, because he was standing on principle. That the Second Amendment was something that he personally went and fought for, and that so many of those that have fought for this country and for our rights, on various levels, were standing for, and he wasn't going to change his principle because some legislators in Olympia decided that they were going to play whatever game it is they're playing. And then, as this has progressed from level to level, it has leveled up each time, and Wally has, borne down and taken that on his shoulders and that burden on his shoulders, not knowing, what the eventuality was going to be. And to your point about how long this is taking, can you imagine taking that kind of stress on your life, your livelihood, your family, and seemingly by himself? I mean, there's literally thousands of FFLs in Washington. Most of them are small, but there's at least hundreds that could have stood up and done something, and or could have gone in together to fight for this. But Wally stands alone in this instance.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I know some folks like, well, he brought it on himself, and it's like, well, if not him, then who?
Right.
The Silent Majority Foundation couldn't have just filed a lawsuit in this same vein. I mean, yes, we could have challenged Senate Bill 5078 just outrightly. Mm-hmm. But we believed it was important to have a client like this to really set the stage. We've got the so-called assault weapon ban. In that case, the Guardian Arms case is still moving forward in Thurston County. And I like the way we structured that case because we have FFLs who are prohibited from selling, and we have individuals, including someone who was not quite 18, not 21.
18, but not 21. So an adult, but not able to purchase a firearm any longer.
Yeah, and so we ran that case with a kind of a smattering of plaintiffs to make sure we covered all the spectrum. We have NRA fire instructors or firearms instructors. We have, kind of Joe citizens. So, I mean, this one we felt we had to fight, though, because someone needed to stand for the industry, but also for Wally. And that's really kind of when we got hooked up with him and heard his story, it was just like, it was the perfect fit.
Right. So not only was it the perfect fit for us as an organization, because we have challenged laws facially and used the standing as an organization, and that's what our members benefit from, is that they join us in defying and standing up for our rights and challenging these bad laws and unconstitutionality. But also the potential for this case to go the distance. Where do you think we stand now, having seen what has transpired with SCOTUS over the last year with them, bringing those gun cases along and then just dumping them off? Where does that put us now?
Yeah, I mean, they have dumped them off, but they've also tipped their hand. I think it was Kavanaugh in his dissent in Snope, it was a dissent in denying the cert. In other words, in denying review for that case, said, hey, look, we realize that the AR ban is something we're going to have to tackle over the next 2 to 3 terms. So he already paved the way for the public to know that at least from the so-called assault weapons ban, the AR bans, SCOTUS is interested in that. I got to believe that if they can answer the same question with the magazines, if you, as the Supreme Court, deem those protected under the Second Amendment, then you're going to deem everything else protected under the Second Amendment.
Right.
Every other integral part. I mean, I guess maybe they can find paint flakes or something like that and say, that's not an integral part. But I do think that this case allows them to broadly answer the Second Amendment questions, and it's the only one, as far as what I've seen, from a state Supreme Court. Now, I saw the interveners, basically our opposing counsel or one of the parties that jumped in, were litigating against him in a different case, and I saw him a couple weeks ago at a hearing. It's like, well, don't you think that actually waters down the interest? And I said, to me, if SCOTUS is looking for a case on this subject matter, and you have all these circuits and there are circuit splits, why not take one from a state Supreme Court? Because now you can tell all state Supreme Courts, this is how we want you to interpret this. We thought we were clear in Bruin. We thought we were clear in Heller. We thought we were clear in Rahimi. We thought we were clear in and. So let's just be clear here. This is what you are told to do.
Right.
And I think this is a great opportunity for SCOTUS to really put that stamp of finality on this issue. Like, sorry, guys, we thought we were clear. Don't know how you messed this up. And so here we are again on these issues again, telling you how to do it. And guess what? We've not deviated course. You have.
Right.
And so, you talk about the Washington State Supreme Court. We had a dissent in that. The majority opinion was, I think, all of like 13 to 17 pages, and the dissent was like 30, 32. And when you look at that, the dissent basically just really hammered on Heller and Bruin and said, hey, here we go again. Like, what did you guys not catch? And so I do think, that might be an attractive point too. Here we are in Washington, the liberal state, or at least supposedly liberal state, liberal legislation at least. And we have 2 Supreme Court justices who are willing to stick their neck out and say, this is what we thought should have happened. We basically agree with Judge Basher, but more importantly, we agree with the U.S. Supreme Court on the way that this is supposed to be analyzed. And, the majority departed from that. So I do think that, and we're going to rely, and we do rely heavily on that dissent as we file this petition and say, hey, look, we're not the only ones that are seeing that the mark was missed here. 2 of the 9 justices here in Washington saw that. So I think there are ways to tee this up so it's attractive. If we thought that cert was going to be denied, we wouldn't waste our time. Like
Right.
I said, you've got me and you've got Austin, you got Caleb, our intern, working pretty much exclusively on this and a couple of other things. I mean, course, my time's always juggled between managing things and people and all that stuff and other cases. But, my real focus and energy since last month has been on this case. And so, and I know that to be true of one other attorney, one intern. So, we're putting as much as we can into this. And then, again, there's some hard costs that are borne by the process. And that's fine. We're willing to, put our donors' money where our mouths are.
Right.
They tell us this is something important. We're going to make it important. We're going to file it. We're going to do everything we can to make this as, pretty and attractive as possible to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Right. Well, to your point about the donors and the money that they've given us to support this cause, it truly carries us through. And we only operate at the grassroots level, at the donor level. We mentioned the NRA giving us some funds, which unfortunately are great and we're grateful for them, but only get us to that point of being able to submit this. There is so much more that goes into after this, and we have to find the funds for that. And that's where we're depending on those of you that follow along and listen and are supporting this work and this path that we're on. We're so reliant on the money coming in from you, and we're grateful for what you have been able to, and we're asking you for additional support and to share this with anybody and everybody you know who is friendly to the cause, who wants to maintain and regain their Second Amendment rights here in the state.
Exactly. I mean, that's what we have to continue. And, it's awesome. I mean, how many other nonprofits are there in the world, or not in the world, but in the country, that are upside down now because, once Doge went in, they found they were funneling, right? Like, and here we are. Yeah, we've struggled. It's been tight, but we didn't lose any funding because we do not take state and federal grants.
Right.
Period. I mean, we could have a better business model. We could be fatter and happier. Not that I'd be happy fatter, but that aside, we could be sitting kind of really high on our hogs, and we refuse to do that because our mission is for, of, and by the people.
Right.
And to protect the rights that Constitution guarantees. Exactly. And we're going to keep fighting from that pivot, even if it's more difficult and more strenuous.
Right. And that's why we appreciate that we're representing someone like Wally, who is truly, one of the people. He is for we the people, and has stood up for we the people. And we owe him a debt of gratitude for being able to take that burden on his shoulders. And we're asking all of you to continue to help support that and move us forward, because we are on the road to SCOTUS, and come hell or high water, that's where we're going. The only thing that can stop us at this point is lack of funds.
Yeah. I mean, the two things would be that, and if SCOTUS doesn't want it, and they've tipped their hand that they want something. Again, they specifically called out the AR ban, but I do think that the posture of this and the misapplication of the U.S. Supreme Court's decision and its rules, I think, make this attractive for SCOTUS to look at it. And we do know that there's likely at least 3 that are interested, and all we need is that 4th.
Right.
And once we get that, now then we got to get the 5th to get the win. But, once we get this brief accepted, God willing, this fall, it'd be phenomenal. Get it teed up and get ready for spring and summer of next year.
Well, let's talk about spring and summer of next year, because we know that they tried to pass additional gun legislation this past spring, and we know they still have it queued up for next year. And unfortunately, for those who are pro 2A, we are not in for any good news coming up. And if we don't succeed, if we don't succeed here with Gator guns, or any other cases that we're bringing forward, that right that we have in Washington State is going to be even more eroded. And I will say at this point, they're not going to stop. It's not going to be, at a certain point you can have some sort of gun, but that's it. No, you will not be able to purchase a gun in Washington State. That is their intention. The people that are writing this legislation, the people that are supporting it, the money that's coming in to support it, their stated intention is zero guns.
Yeah, I mean, so the biggest legislation that quote died this year, and because we have a biennial session, a 2-year session, anything that dies in year one takes a nap until year two. It carries forward. Obviously, the biggest one is what we call the 1 in 30, one gun, 30 days. And with the way background checks are already taking a long lead time, there's a risk that you're now like 1 in 90 days or whatever the case may be. They're going to, extend that as long as possible. And
don't forget that they did pass permit to purchase this year as well. So not only you have that extended background, the longer to purchase it, now you have to have training. Somehow you're going to have to find that training without having a gun already. If you're not already a gun owner, how are you going to be able to afford the training, get the training without a firearm?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, they're making it much more improbable, if not impossible, for new firearms owners to acquire anything. And the 1 in 30 case, in California, it was deemed unconstitutional. But I don't think that's going to stop our legislature.
Hasn't yet.
Exactly. I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the constitutional muster of their laws are. They're willing to pass them and tie up the resources of the Attorney General's office. So, I mean, they take our money, their tax money, and, misspend it, misappropriate it, and then spend. And of course, we hear, well, the budget's going to get balanced. Yeah, not with the cuts, with more taxes.
So more and more taxes. And then, once, the 1 in 30, and then they want to introduce an ammunition tax.
Yep.
As well as, additional taxes on purchasing the firearm itself. It's never ending. And what they are doing is that they are slowly but surely, and not so slowly anymore, chipping away at the FFL from the vendor, the sellers, and then restricting from the buyer's end even further, so that to the point where it will be impossible for anybody but the most affluent, most rich, most resourceful few to be able to have a firearm.
Yeah, and most likely those more resourceful people have second residences that aren't in the state of Washington. So, I mean, what do they care?
Right.
I mean, they care because they're passionate about the issue, but
they have armed bodyguards, or they have access to just security that the average person doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's on so many levels, and we can really dive into at every level that it is restricting our rights. But what it comes down to, at the most basic level, is that our Second Amendment right is for us to be able to defend ourselves from a tyrannical government, as well as outlined in the state constitution, to defend ourselves.
Exactly, and that's why we exist, is to bring back that paper. And the legislature's trying to kill it, probably got it partially on life support, and we're the ones that are, shocking the paddles and saying clear.
Yeah.
Because we want that to be we don't want it to be a living, breathing document in the way the left likes that, meaning they can modify it in any way. We want it to be alive.
Right. It is the way it is. And there are ways to amend it and change it, go through those routes instead of writing these silly, goofy laws that they keep on writing. Pete, I think we've wrapped up that discussion and that topic. What's your last final plea to the people about this case? What do we need to make this get to that finish line? You say probably summertime 2026. What do we need?
I mean, we're going to need, to continually fund it through no less than $100,000, possibly up to $250,000 over the next, whatever that is, 9 months, year, basically.
9 to 12 months.
We have briefs. We're going to have all the publication costs. So, let's play it out. So we open the brief, we get that filed in the next, 2 to 3 weeks. The state has 30 days. They'll probably get a natural extension of another 30 days. So That puts us to early October. Then we have to file a reply, and again, there are hard costs with that in addition to just costs of
Resources.
personnel.
Yeah.
That'll be due in early November, and we'll try to keep that without filing an extension, which means that then it goes onto the docket in November, and hopefully maybe if they like what they see, it could be conferenced and taken up as soon as the end of the year.
Right.
If they like what they see, that's what's going to happen. Then if they like what they see and they take it up, then we still have the same process: an opening brief, a response brief by the state, and then a reply by us. And so, and it's, this isn't just dust off the shelf. We're going to, one of the things is knowing that they've rejected some of these cases recently. We've done everything we can to learn from those, to pull good assets out of all that briefing, and then also make sure our voice is different. Mm-hmm. And again, it's easy to tee it up a little differently because it's come from a state Supreme Court with a dissenting opinion that really basically says, hey, look, the Superior Court got this right. And so I think there are ways to distinguish our case from the cases that have been rejected. And that has been our real homework. I mean, yeah, there are plenty of articles and other cases that have gone to the U.S. Supreme Court that if we just wanted to cut and paste, that'd be easy homework. But we have to make sure ours is different, not only because it's different, but because we need to keep their eye on it.
Yeah.
And so, if we do get review granted, the briefing, the tone, the temperature, all of it is different. So while we might be able to recycle some of this brief, we're still going to have to modify it.
Yeah.
Because now it's like the difference is when you're seeking review, filing the writ for certiorari, as they call it right now, our current stage is, hey, look at us. Like, we want to get in the door. It's a get in the door brief. And this is why you should grant me access. And once you are granted review, it's this is why I win now that I'm in the building.
Right.
And, while there's a whole, you're going to backdoor in, this is why I win with the let me in the door, it still is a totally different approach. And it's interesting because, usually it's, hey, I win because of this. Now it's, for this first brief, it's we deserve to be here because of this. Oh, and by the way, foreshadowing why we win. This is kind of why we win, but we're not going to really get into those merits today.
Right.
So, I mean, it's again, it's not that we can just cut and paste currently, and we can't just pull this brief over. And yeah, there are pieces and portions of prior briefs that we've written, that other folks have written, seeking review. And it's going to be true that they're going to be pieces of the writ that we're going to be able to use for the actual, opening brief. But there's a whole process. And then, we get review, there's the paper, and then there's the whole preparation. There's a question that we have. Do we want to bring in outside attorneys who argue a lot before the U.S. Supreme Court so that they have a friendly face either at the bench or at the podium with us, at counsel table? Mm-hmm. Costs for travel, costs to, again, we're going to have to mute this or practice oral arguments for weeks, if not months on end.
Right.
And we'll want to make sure, again, that those are really well practiced individuals. I mean, so there's a lot back to the question of what's it going to cost. There are a lot of hard costs as far as time, and as well as we may have to be paying for folks' time to help us through the process.
And travel.
Yeah.
Possible travel. It's expensive. I'm just sitting here thinking, how do we, as an organization, how we break down cost. And I think at one point, I know at one point we determined that our attorneys essentially get paid about $100 an hour, which, seems pretty dang cheap when you consider most attorneys are charging $200, $300, $400, $500, and then the elites charging $1,000 an hour. When we can break our costs down for what we do for it. So,
well, I want to restate that not paid.
Okay.
The hard costs, the foundation.
Right.
because attorneys are getting paid way less than that.
Right.
And I'm not trying to nitpick there, but no, we're not making $100 an hour. It costs the organization overhead costs, and that assumes we're not doing the travel and all the filing and all that stuff. If we break it down on the cheapest, it probably costs about the foundation about $100 an hour for each hour the attorneys are designated to work, and it may even be less than that.
Right.
And that includes our rent. That includes all the bills. So
definitely,
so
it should have stayed that it's $100 per attorney hour versus being paid an hour.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, to your point, if you were to hire someone that was going to take this case on to the U.S. Supreme Court, you're somewhere between $750 and $1,000, maybe even $1,200 an hour,
Right.
and some are up to $1,500 and $2,000 an hour.
Right.
So that's basically 1 hour to 10 to 15 to 7. I mean, now of course when we win, we'll bill the state higher.
Right.
But that's what reasonable attorneys' fees are.
So,
And we get to bill them at that.
So the point in bringing that up at all was to say that if you were to donate $100, you're paying for one attorney hour, right? And and if we're looking for $100,000 or $250,000, that's it's 1,000 people paying $100 or 2,500 people paying $100, and those costs are covered. So this isn't something that's unattainable. It just requires that we get everybody that has an interest in this particular fight to join us, be part of it, pay for your hour of fees, pay for your hour of work, and we will be able to accomplish that and bring that win home.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't say it any more perfectly. That's the cost, and our ultimate goal is to bring that win home so that our rights retain the protection they should be given.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Pete, thanks for the update. I know I've been stressing about this one because this is so big. This is so big for me personally, for us as a foundation, and for gun enthusiasts statewide, and not to mention nationwide. What we'll be able to accomplish.
Well, I mean, when you look at what Bruin had the effect, we didn't have that law on books from New York.
Right.
But its analysis has been a key to this different issue, albeit related, in Washington. We could be the Bruin of 2025, 2026. And again, it changed the analysis. It changed the game. It changed the playing field. It changed it all. And that's what we're trying to do with this case is, yes, we want to protect Wally. Yes, we want to protect our personal rights and our personal interests and those who support us here in Washington and elsewhere. But this has the ability to be that tidal wave that Bruin was when everyone said, oh, wait. The Supreme Court's actually going to look at gun cases and rule in a way that protects our Second Amendment rights. I mean, imagine this one coming and then Rahimi hit, and that had its pluses and its minuses. And so this is an opportunity to really crack that egg and really open it to the United States of America.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thanks for following along. We appreciate all the support that you have. If you have any questions, drop them down low. We'll do our best to answer any questions you have about this. Reach out to us at smfjb.org. You can donate. You can get updates. You can interact with us however you want to. But we welcome you and encourage you to join the team. Come be part of it.
Come join us.